This story is titled, I overheard my girlfriend of 2 years say to her friends that I'd be 10 times better if I were as tall as her ex and that she would leave me for someone taller. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hi Reddit, let me lay it all out. I'm Eric, 31 years old, and standing at 6 feet 3 inches. You're probably wondering why I'm throwing in my height like it's a Tinder bio, but trust me, it'll make sense later. I've worked my way up in life, I built my own business from scratch, and now I'm making six figures and living in a house I own outright. I'm proud of what I've accomplished because it wasn't handed to me. For the past 2 years, I've been in a relationship with Bella, who's 26 and 5 feet 2 inches. Again, weird detail, but hang tight. Bella moved in with me about 6 months into dating. She wasn't in a great financial situation at the time. She worked part-time as a social media manager and barely made enough to cover her own bills. She'd been living with her sister, but their relationship was rocky, and she said she needed a fresh start. I thought, why not? I had the space and the money, so I invited her to move in. Looking back, I probably should have thought that decision through more. At first, it felt good to help her out. I wanted to be the kind of guy who supports his partner when they're struggling. So I took on all the financial responsibilities, rent, utilities, groceries, and anything else that came up. She'd occasionally throw in a few bucks here and there, but it was never enough to matter. I justified it to myself by thinking we were building something together. I believed that as she got more stable, she'd start contributing more to the relationship, not just financially, but emotionally too. But as time went on, it started to feel like I was the only one doing the heavy lifting. One thing about Bella, she loved showing off the lifestyle I gave her. She was all over Instagram, posting pictures of fancy dinners I paid for, trips I planned, and even gifts I bought her. But there was one thing missing in all those posts: me. She'd share photos of the food, the scenery, or the designer bag I surprised her with, but it was like I didn't exist. At first, I thought maybe she was just a private person, but over time, it started to feel like she was intentionally hiding the fact that she was in a relationship. She wasn't shy about mentioning her exes. Every now and then, she'd casually drop a comment about how one of her exes was so tall or how athletic another one was. She'd frame it like it was no big deal, but I couldn't help but feel like she was subtly comparing me to. I brushed it off because I didn't want to seem insecure or petty, but it stuck with me. She also had this habit of joking about how our future kids might end up short because of my average genes. She'd laugh it off like it was nothing, but it always left me feeling a little weird. Like, why even say that? I didn't let it show, but those comments started to pile up. I mean, I get it, I'm not 7 feet tall, but 6 feet 3 inches isn't exactly short. It wasn't even about the height at this point. It was the lack of respect in those jokes. Despite these little red flags, I kept trying to make things. I wanted to believe we were just going through a rough patch. I told myself she was young and needed time to mature, and I figured my patience would pay off in the long run. But it wasn't just the comparisons or the lack of financial contribution. It was her attitude toward the future. Whenever I brought up long-term plans, like investing in property or saving for big goals, she'd roll her eyes or laugh it off. She'd say things like, "You're so serious all the time. Let's just live in the moment." At first, I thought she just had a different outlook on life. But over time, it started to feel like she wasn't thinking about the future at all. Still, I ignored it all. I kept telling myself she was young, she's 26, and would grow into being more responsible. Everyone deserves time to figure things out, right? I didn't want to be that guy who expected perfection or judged her for not being on my level financially. Meanwhile, I was putting in the work, not just in my career, but in the relationship too. I'd plan date nights, surprise her with thoughtful gifts, and even help her brainstorm ideas for her freelance work when she was stuck. And what did I get in return? Barely anything. I started noticing other little things too. Bella had a way of making everything about her. If I had a stressful day at work and needed to vent, she'd listen for about 2 minutes before steering the conversation back to whatever minor inconvenience she'd dealt with that day. It was like she didn't have the capacity to be there for me in the way I was there for her. Still, I kept making excuses for her. I told myself she wasn't used to being in a serious relationship, or that she just needed time to adjust to living with someone. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. What really started to get under my skin was how little effort she put into acknowledging me as her partner. We were living together. I was supporting her financially. And yet she acted like I was just some background character in her life. I'd see her friends comment on her posts like, "Wow, you're living the dream." And she'd never correct them or mention that I was the one making it all possible. I remember one specific instance that really bothered me. We were out at a nice restaurant and I noticed her taking pictures of the food and the ambiance. Later that night, I saw her post on Instagram with a caption like, treating myself to a much-needed night out. No mention of me, no tag, nothing. It felt like she was trying to present this image of herself as this independent, thriving woman, when in reality, she was leaning on me for everything. At this point, I was starting to see Bella for who she really was. She wasn't just immature or inexperienced, she was selfish. And the worst part was, I had let it go on for so long because I didn't want to admit that I'd made a mistake by letting her move in. But the final straw was just around the corner, and let me tell you, it was a wake-up call I couldn't ignore. Stick around, Reddit, because things are about to get messy. It was a Tuesday evening, and I'd wrapped up work early. I walked into the house around 5 p.m., expecting the usual scene, Bella scrolling through her phone or half watching some reality show she was in. Instead, I walked in on a little gathering. Bella was on the couch with her two friends, chatting away, glasses of something in hand. I gave a polite, "Hey," grabbed a drink for myself, and headed upstairs to my office. I figured they were just catching up or gossiping, the usual stuff. But as I got halfway up the stairs, I heard my name. That stopped me in my tracks. One of her friends asked, "So what's the deal with Eric? He's great and all, but aren't you into taller guys?" I froze. My brain immediately started processing what the hell that was supposed to mean. Bella didn't hesitate. She laughed and said, "Yeah, I mean, he's got the money, but I still wish he were taller. My ex was 6 feet 5 inches, and honestly, if I found someone like him again, I'd be gone in a heartbeat." Her friends joined in with the giggles, and one of them chimed in, "You're so bad." Bella just shrugged and said, "It's just the truth. If he was as tall as my ex, he'd be perfect. Perfect." That word hit me like a ton of bricks. All this time, I thought I was being the best partner I could be. I worked my ass off to build a good life for us, covered every bill, and even tried to plan for our future. And here she was, reducing me to a number on a tape measure, laughing about it with her friends like I was some backup plan, until someone better came along. I stayed rooted to the spot for a second, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. Was this the same person I'd been sharing my life with for 2 years? The person I'd been bending over backward to support? I quietly headed upstairs, not wanting to make a scene right then and there. It was like the last 2 years of effort, love, and sacrifice didn't mean anything. She'd gladly throw it all away for something as shallow as height. I'm not saying physical preferences are wrong, but to prioritize something so trivial over everything else, it was a slap in the face. I thought about confronting her right then and there, but I knew it wouldn't go well. Bella was the kind of person who always had a way of turning things around. If I called her out in front of her friends, she'd probably laugh it off or play the victim, and I wasn't about to give her that satisfaction. So instead, I stayed upstairs and let them finish their little hangout. When her friends finally left, I stayed upstairs a little longer, pretending to be busy. Bella came up about an hour later and casually said, "Hey, how was your day?" Like nothing had happened. I gave her a vague, "It was fine," and didn't let on that I'd heard everything. I needed time to process what I was going to do next. That night, as I lay in bed next to her, I kept looking over at her, wondering how I'd been so blind to who she really was. It wasn't just the comment about my height. It was everything. The constant comparisons to her exes, the way she never acknowledged me on social media, the lack of effort she put into our relationship. It all painted a pretty clear picture. Bella wasn't with me because she loved me. She was with me because it was convenient. Part of me honestly wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, to believe that maybe she didn't mean what she said. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't just a careless comment. It was a glimpse into how she really saw me. And once you see someone's true colors, you can't unsee them. The moment of truth was coming, and this time, I wasn't going to hold back. The morning after I overheard Bella trashing me to her friends, I woke up feeling clearer than I had in a long time. There was no more overthinking or trying to justify her behavior. It was time to take action. For too long, I had let her disrespect slide, convincing myself it wasn't a big deal, or that I was overreacting. But this was the last straw. I went downstairs and started making coffee, taking my time. Bella eventually wandered in, acting like it was just another day. She smiled and said, "Morning." I decided not to waste time beating around the bush. Once we both had our coffee, I sat down at the table and said, "Bella, we need to talk." She looked confused at first, but sat down across from me. "I've been thinking," I said, keeping my tone calm but firm, "and I feel like we need to reevaluate this relationship." Her confusion turned into full-on concern. "What do you mean?" I didn't sugarcoat it. "I overheard you talking to your friends yesterday. I heard what you said about me." The color drained from her face. "Eric, wait, I didn't mean—" I held up a hand. "Let me finish. You said you'd leave me for someone taller. You laughed about it like it was nothing. You've been living in my house, spending my money, and you think it's okay to make comments like that? It's disrespectful, Bella. It's beyond disrespectful." She started panicking, scrambling for excuses. "Eric, no. You've got it all wrong. It was just girl talk. You know how we are, it doesn't mean anything. It was a stupid joke. I wasn't buying it. Jokes? That's your defense? You joked about leaving me for someone else. How is that funny? It doesn't sound like a joke to me. It sounds like entitlement. At this point, Bella started crying, like full-on tears, wiping her face with her sleeve, the whole thing. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean it. I was just being dumb. Please don't take it so seriously. I love you, Eric. Her words didn't carry any weight for me. Now that her mask had slipped, there was no going back. I'm done, Bella, I said, keeping my tone steady. You've shown me who you really are, and there's no coming back from it. You've got 3 days to pack your things and leave. Her crying intensified. Eric, no, please, we can work this out. I'll make it up to you. I'll do better. I shook my head. It's too late for that. And by the way, you're cut off financially starting now. No more money, no more handouts. If you want to stay somewhere else or figure out your next steps, that's on you. I've done enough. She just sat there, sobbing, trying to plead with me, but I'd already made up my mind. It wasn't even about the money or the logistics at this point. It was about respecting myself enough to walk away. After I left the table, she followed me around the house, still begging me to reconsider. I had to repeat myself multiple times. This is done. I'm serious. Eventually, I told her she could stay in the guest room while she packed her stuff. The next 3 days were awkward, to say the least. Bella tried everything. She apologized 100 different ways, tried to cook dinner for me, which she'd never done before, and even offered to start paying for her share of the bills. But it all felt too little, too late. She wasn't sorry for what she said. She was sorry she got caught. What really sealed the deal for me was her reaction when she realized I wasn't going to change my mind. By the second day, the tears turned into anger. She accused me of overreacting, said I was throwing away everything we built over one little comment. It was almost funny hearing her say, everything we built when I'd been the one doing all the build. The morning she left, I was polite but distant. I helped her carry her bags to the car and said goodbye. She cried a little more, but by then, I was completely checked out. Watching her drive away felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. That day, I took some time to reflect on everything that had happened. I realized how much of myself I'd given to someone who didn't appreciate it, and I promised myself I'd never let that happen again. In hindsight, this breakup wasn't just about the comment she made to her friends. It was about the bigger picture, the lack of respect, the entitlement, and the way she took advantage of my generosity without ever giving anything back. That comment was just the spark that set everything in motion. I spent the next few days cleaning up the house, getting rid of the little things she'd left behind, and reclaiming my space. It was like starting over, and honestly, it felt damn good. About a week after Bella moved out, I was finally starting to feel like myself again. My house was quieter, cleaner, and honestly, more peaceful without her presence. Then I got a message from Ashley, one of Bella's friends. I wasn't expecting to hear from her, and at first I wasn't sure if I even wanted to reply. But her message said, "Hey Eric, I know we don't talk much, but I feel like I need to tell you something about Bella. You deserve to know the truth." Out of curiosity, I agreed to meet her at a local coffee shop. When Ashley walked in, she looked a little nervous, like she wasn't sure how to start. After some small talk, she took a deep breath and said, "I feel bad about what happened between you and Bella. I wasn't planning on saying anything, but I think you should know the full story." I nodded, trying to play it cool, but my mind was racing. Ashley continued, "Bella was seeing someone else while you two were together. His name's Liam. He's tall. I'll give him that. But honestly, he's kind of a loser. No job, no ambition, still living with his parents. She thought she could have the best of both worlds, your stability and his height, I guess." Hearing that, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel betrayed. What I felt was relief. Like, this was the final puzzle piece that confirmed I'd made the right decision. Bella wasn't just disrespectful, she was dishonest, selfish, and honestly, shallow as hell. Ashley told me Bella had been sneaking around with Liam for a few months. Apparently, they'd met through a mutual friend, and Bella would see him on the days she claimed to be working late or hanging out with the girls. Liam knew about me but didn't care. From what Ashley said, he thought it was funny that Bella was playing both sides. It was clear Bella had no real loyalty to anyone. She was using me for financial stability, and Liam for whatever shallow thrill he provided. The whole situation was pathetic, but at the same time, it felt validating. I'd spent so long wondering if I was overreacting or being too harsh, but this confirmed that I wasn't the problem. She was. Ashley admitted she felt guilty for not saying anything sooner. "I thought Bella would eventually tell you, but when I saw how everything went down, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. You're a good guy, Eric, and you didn't deserve any of this." I thanked her for telling me and reassured her I wasn't mad at her. Honestly, Ashley didn't owe me anything, and the fact that she went out of her way to tell me the truth meant a lot. As we talked more, Ashley gave me even more insight into Bella's mindset. Apparently, Bella had been bragging to her friends about how she had options. She'd joke about how she had me to cover her bills, and Liam to make her feel desired. Hearing that made me cringe. I couldn't believe I'd spent 2 years with someone so shallow and self-serving. When I got home that night, I felt an odd sense of closure. I thought back to all the times Bella had made me feel like I wasn't enough. Her comments about my height, her dismissive attitude toward my future plan, her lack of effort in our relationship. Now I understood that it wasn't about me. Bella was the type of person who would never be satisfied because she was always looking for something better, even if it didn't exist. That night, I deleted every picture, message, and reminder of Bella from my phone. I blocked her number and unfollowed her on every platform. I wasn't angry. I just didn't want her to have any access to me or my life. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much of a bullet I'd dodged. If I hadn't overheard that conversation with her friends, I might still be stuck in that one-sided relationship, pouring time and money into someone who didn't value me. The truth about Bella and Liam didn't make me feel bitter or jaded. If anything, it reinforced what I'd already learned. I deserve better. I deserve someone who values me for who I am, not just what I can provide. I'm grateful Ashley reached out to me. She didn't have to get involved, but her honesty gave me the final push I needed to move on. Bella and Liam, they can have each other. From what Ashley told me, Liam isn't exactly boyfriend material, so I doubt their fling will last. A couple of weeks after Ashley dropped the truth bomb about Bella's side hustle with Liam, she hit me up again. I wasn't expecting more updates, but when her name popped up on my phone, I figured it'd be worth hearing what she had to say. Hey, Ashley started, sounding a little hesitant. I thought you'd find this interesting. Bella's been trying to move in with Liam and his family since you kicked her out. I blinked at the message, half expecting it to end with some ridiculous story about how they were happily playing house. But then Ashley added, but it didn't go the way she planned. Ashley told me that after Bella moved out of my place, she must have thought Liam was going to step up and be her next safety net. She'd apparently asked him if she could move in with him, using her usual charm, if you can call it that. She tried the same sweet-talking sob story routine she'd used on me, about how hard things had been for her, and how she needed someone to support her. But Liam, bless his heart, wasn't having it. Ashley said his response was blunt. I'm not your sugar daddy. That line had me cracking up. For someone who'd been fine with Bella juggling two guys at once, Liam clearly had his limits. And apparently, freeloading wasn't on his list of acceptable behaviors. After that, Liam ghosted her. Just like that, poof. No explanation, no follow-up. Classic. Bella had played herself out of 2 relationships in record time. She went from living rent-free in my house, where she had every comfort handed to her, to trying to hopscotch into Liam's place and failing miserably. Ashley told me that since then, Bella had been couch surfing. She didn't have many close friends willing to take her in, so she was bouncing around between acquaintances and her sister's place, who, from what I'd heard, wasn't thrilled to have her back. Bella had burned a lot of bridges with her self-centered behavior, and now it was all catching up to her. Hearing all this didn't make me feel smug or vindictive. Okay, maybe a little, but mostly it just reinforced that I'd made the right decision. Bella was used to leeching off people who cared about her, and now that no one was willing to put up with her nonsense, she was floundering. Ashley even said Bella had been complaining about how unfair everything was. Unfair? Really? She had a good thing going with me, a stable life, a partner who cared about her, and a future she didn't have to worry about financially. But that wasn't enough for her. She wanted more, and now she had less than ever. What really stuck with me was what Ashley said next. Bella told me she regrets how things ended with you. She didn't realize how good she had it. It's funny how people only appreciate what they had after they lose it. But by then, I was so far removed from the situation that her regrets didn't faze me. I wasn't interested in being someone's backup plan, especially not hers. What struck me most about the whole situation was how quickly Bella's world had unraveled. She'd spent so much time focusing on what she thought she was missing, height, excitement, whatever, that she didn't see how good her life actually was. And now she was paying the price for her short-sightedness. I'll admit, part of me wanted to laugh at how poetic it all was. Bella had been so obsessed with finding someone better that she'd ended up with nothing. Meanwhile, I was thriving. Ashley and I wrapped up our conversation with her saying, I don't think she's done trying to come back to you. Just a heads up. I wasn't surprised. Bella wasn't the type to admit defeat easily, especially when she was desperate. But hearing it from Ashley just solidified my resolve. There was no way I was going to let her back into my life. For the next few days, I kept thinking about how different things could have been if I'd let myself stay stuck in that relationship. Bella's downfall wasn't my problem, and it felt good to know I wasn't responsible for cleaning up her mess anymore. I've always believed that people show you who they really are when things get tough. Bella showed me, and Liam too, that she wasn't worth the effort. Now it was her turn to figure out her next move without me. I thought I'd seen the last of Bella. After the whole Liam situation blew up in her face, I figured she'd stay far away from me. Life had been quiet, peaceful even. I was back in my groove, focusing on work, reconnecting with friends, and just enjoying the freedom of not having someone sucking the life and money out of me. Then, on an otherwise normal Tuesday, she decided to turn my life into a spectacle one last time. It started like any other day at the office. I was catching up on emails and preparing for a meeting when my assistant knocked on my door. She looked uncomfortable, which immediately made me nervous. Eric, there's, someone here asking for you. She says it's urgent. I frowned. Who? She hesitated. Her name's Bella. She's upset. On the second I heard her name, my stomach sank. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered under my breath. Against my better judgment, I got up and headed toward the lobby. And there she was, standing in the middle of the room with tears streaming down her face. She was a mess, hair all over the place, makeup smudged, and wearing the kind of casual clothes that made it clear she wasn't here for a professional chat. As if that wasn't bad enough, several of my coworkers were hovering nearby, pretending not to watch but obviously trying to figure out what the hell was going on. The whole scene was straight out of a bad movie. Eric, please, I need to talk to you, Bella said, her voice cracking. I glanced around, trying to gauge how much damage control I'd need to do after this public meltdown. Bella, this isn't the time or place, I said, keeping my voice low and controlled. But she wasn't backing down. I've been trying to reach you, and you're ignoring me. Just hear me out, please. I sighed and motioned for her to follow me into a private conference. I wasn't about to have this conversation in the middle of my workplace. Once we were inside, I shut the door and leaned against the table, crossing my arms. What do you want, Bella? She took a shaky breath. Eric, I messed up. I know I did, okay? I've been thinking about everything, and I realize now how much I took you for granted. You were so good to me, and I held up a hand to stop her. Bella, just get to the point. Why are you here? Her tears started flowing again, and she wiped them away with her sleeve. I need your help. My sister wants me to move out because I couldn't afford to help with rent, and my job doesn't pay enough to get my own place. I can't go back to my parents' house. It's unbearable there. Eric, I have nowhere else to go. I just stared at her. This was her big plan? Show up at my office, make a scene, and expect me to swoop in and save her? Bella, I said slowly, this isn't my problem anymore. You made your choices, and now you have to deal with the consequence. Her face twisted into desperation. Eric, please, I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll get a better job, I'll help with the bills. Just give me one more chance. I can't live like this anymore. I shook my head. Bella, it's too late. I've moved on. You need to figure out your own life. Her demeanor shifted. The tears dried up, and anger took their place. You're really just going to leave me like this? After everything we've been through? I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. After everything we've been through? Bella, I gave you 2 years of my life. I supported you financially, emotionally, and in every other way possible. And what did you do? You disrespected me, cheated on me, and used me. So yeah, I'm done. She didn't say anything for a moment, just stood there staring at me like she couldn't believe I wasn't caving. Then, without another word, she turned and stormed out of the room. When I went back to my desk, a couple of coworkers gave me awkward looks but didn't say anything. I appreciated their restraint, but I knew I'd have to address the situation at some point. For now, I just focused on getting through the rest of the day. Later, I heard through Ashley that Bella had officially hit rock bottom. Her part-time job wasn't cutting it, and her sister was done with her freeloading. Bella had been forced to move back in with her parents, who lived in a conservative, small-town neighborhood she always hated. From what Ashley told me, Bella was miserable. Her parents were strict and didn't approve of her lifestyle, and she felt trapped and judged all the time. She'd gone from living rent-free in my house with every comfort handed to her, to being stuck in her childhood bedroom with no freedom and no prospects. Honestly, I didn't feel bad for her. Bella had plenty of chances to turn things around, and she blew every single one of them. She was so focused on what she thought she was missing that she lost sight of what she had. And now she was paying the price. As for me, life has been great. I've put all the drama behind me and focused on building the kind of life I actually want, one that doesn't include toxic relationships or people who take me for granted. Bella's just a footnote in my story now. A lesson I won't forget, but also won't dwell on. And that's the end of it, Reddit. Bella's officially out of my life, and I couldn't be happier. Thanks for sticking around for the ride. Sometimes life has a funny way of working itself out.